We call these wildlife trees. I love planting trees. I'm going to plant lots of trees. And this is what I enjoy. Yes, it'll grow. I would like for you to come back here in 5 years.
Hey, what's up, Mary Contrary?
What's going on, Starfish, on this snowy February day? Well, I have a story for you today that is very sad, and it's unfortunately not a happy ending, so I just want to let everyone know that ahead of time.
Usually these have pretty unhappy endings because of the people don't get caught, but it's got to be more to it than that then, huh? Oh.
Yeah. It involves a millionaire, and as you know, I'm not a huge proponent of the millionaire or billionaire class, but in this instance, I do feel sorry for this person. So
this scam was pretty bad, but he's still no. I'm just kidding. Aside from the scam, this guy, no.
Right, yeah. It's going to be one of those where it just kind of keeps getting worse as we go along. So we'll just have to go with it. So this is a story of a psychic con named Rachel Lee, who stole $15 million from Ralph Raines Jr., an elderly timber heir based in Oregon.
$15 million through psychic scam. Wow, that's a ton of money.
Oh, yeah. Big payday on this one.
Jeez.
So this scam lasted a whole decade. So it went from 2004 to 2014. So it's a little bit older of a story, but it's still a really crazy good one to talk about. I just came across it as just crazy. So Rachel Lee basically mastered her way into managing Ralph's financial and social affairs. And she did literally anything she could to keep this poor old guy on her leash, including planning a fake marriage between him and her own 17-year-old daughter. Yeah, so we'll get into this further. Now, Ralph Raines Jr., I think at the time, he was in his 50s or 60s when this took place. So
still, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry not to be ageist, everyone.
Right. I mean, hey, it works out for some people, is it Michael Douglas?
And Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah, isn't there a huge age gap between the two?
But did he start dating her when she was 17? That's the part that's weird, I think. You're still in high school. Yeah. You still have to go to a prom.
Right. Well, and honestly, this guy, I don't even know that he knew her real age. Okay. I don't think it was like that at all. I just don't think he knew how old this girl was.
Well, then icky for her mom for pimping her out.
Yeah, no kidding. So Ralph Raines Jr., he was a lonely bachelor and an heir to a timber farm fortune. His father, Ralph Sr., had built a multi-million-dollar business by planting trees on a sprawling 1,200-acre land in Galveston, Oregon.
That's big.
Yeah. One mature tree was worth about $1,000. Of course, nowadays with timber inflation, I'm sure it's twice that. Yeah, so according to Ralph Jr., the trees were mainly sold to companies dealing with telephone and power poles. So, and it sounds like a pretty sustainable business. I'm just speculating here, but I would assume they do it in a sustainable way, which I like that. In the business world, when people do stuff where they're not just killing everything on purpose and not replenishing.
Well, yeah, if they want to make more money, they better replenish.
Right. It's not like the mining industry. That's probably a whole nother set of episodes, but...
Whatever, they're perfect.
Right. Oh, yeah, they never do anything bad, right? Okay.
No. What, this is in Oregon, you said?
Yeah, so this is actually close to, I believe it's Bend, Oregon. Is close by, and Eugene, Oregon. I've been to Eugene. One of my best friends lives there, and it's a really cool area. I'm going to say a random fact about Bend, Oregon, because I think it's funny. Bend, Oregon has the very last Blockbuster store in the United States.
Wow, I was not expecting that at all. So. Blockbuster, that's so funny. Huh.
I know. Well, she used to be a Blockbuster manager back in the day.
So she knows.
Yeah, and she loved the job. She loved that job. So she, of course... Oh, yeah. She has the biggest movie collection I think I've ever seen in my life. Of anybody.
I'm sure she got a bunch for free.
Yeah, she's seen, she's seen, almost every movie out there. And I'm like, wow. I don't have the time or patience to sit and watch, millions of movies. But,
No.
To each their own.
That's so funny. The last Blockbuster.
Oh, yeah.
Just up the street.
The last Blockbuster. Bend, Oregon, right next door. Anyway, so I guess, Ralph Jr., he spent every day on the tree farm. And then when he wasn't outside, of course, taking care of all the trees, he was inside looking after his ailing father who lived with him. So despite his wealth, I think he was 60 at the time of his father's death, which was in 2011, just for Ralph Sr. He continued to work hard and live simply in a humble house on the farm. So there's going to be some speculation here on this, but I feel like he probably didn't know what the fortune was worth. I feel like the Ralph Sr. kind of knew more than Ralph Jr. about that kind of stuff. It seemed like Ralph Jr. was just kind of doing what he's always done, like what he was taught to do by his dad, and just trying to run the business alone, and kind of a lonely guy, not very social.
Yeah, they say a lot about second generation businesses that usually the second and third generation doesn't make it because they don't know as much about the business or care as much about the business. But I mean, he died like in 2011, which is well into this lady doing this con on him. So
yeah, for sure, like the con on his son, yeah. Anyway, so a few people who knew Ralph Jr. at the time the story came out, so this was around 2015 when all this kind of broke on the news, they told the journalists that he had no social life at all, and that he's closer to trees than human beings.
Wow.
So he's a little tree hugger.
Literal tree hugger.
I'm a tree hugger. Yeah, I mean, I hug trees too, so it's all right. You can hug trees.
Oh, this guy was just a sitting duck.
I know, it just sucks. Like, it just sounds like he's just one of those nice people that's just been out there, waiting for someone to take advantage here. Because people are terrible.
They really are.
So his life totally changed, of course, when he met Rachel Lee in 2004. Rachel Lee, I guess she moved to Bend, Oregon. She opened up some psychic shop there. And she claimed to be a professional psychic. And Raines somehow found out about her since he had an interest in the paranormal. So he went to her for love advice. And I guess he just seemingly really liked her comforting companionship. And so, of course, then Ralph and Rachel became close friends. And their relationship kind of went a notch higher when Rachel became his personal advisor and confidant in matters of love and finance. So here's where everything starts to go south, Starfish. I know. Oh my gosh. Ralph hired her as his bookkeeper, and unfortunately, while Ralph saw Rachel as a friend, the psychic con saw him for his wealth, and she was just going to scam this old man of all of his inheritance and everything. Yeah, it just keeps getting worse here as we go along, unfortunately.
So he hired her as his bookkeeper, like a psychic? What skills does she have as a bookkeeper?
I know, that's what I was wondering too. She must have lied to him about her background somehow. And again, I'm just kind of speculating here. Because it seems like this poor guy is pretty gullible, right? He just kind of fell for all this stuff because he was lonely. I mean, I can imagine it must be really hard to have a multi-million-dollar business that you're trying to run and your dad who's sick. And his health isn't so good. So that's got to be a lot to deal with.
Population, right? Something. Everybody in Bend is like, hey.
They're like, hey, did you go to the Blockbuster? Oh man. So apart from Rachel, there's two other accomplices in this story that aided significantly in this decade-long con job. So one of them was Blancy Lee, who Rachel introduced to Raines Jr. as her brother. But guess who he was? He was actually her on and off boyfriend. Ugh. Yeah, so Blancy actually started doing odd jobs around the Raines house. And so Raines decided to go ahead and put him on the payroll. Like another mistake right there. So before we discuss how they decided to squander all of Ralph's fortune, the third accomplice, as mentioned earlier, in addition to Rachel managing Ralph's book, she also came through for him on the romance front. So in one of the fortune-telling sessions that Rachel had with Ralph, she predicted that he would meet the love of his life at an airport.
How specific.
Right? Sure enough, that's where Ralph's heart
of course. Went. I'm surprised it wasn't at a Blockbuster.
I know, right?
Because she didn't know.
Right?
Keep going.
Yeah. So there's just so much to this. So in October of 2007, Raines was coincidentally in Portland International Airport returning home from a timber convention when he met a lady named Mary Marks. He was excited to meet her. She was a very proper-looking young woman with long blonde hair, glasses, and spoke with a British accent.
British accent, oh man. You have to fake that.
Oh, I know. Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, these people just went all out. They pulled out all the stops. So she said she was a financial expert. She also claimed to have psychic abilities and offered to give him a reading. And, of course, the reading was spot on.
Because she knew everything from her mom.
Little did... Oh, yeah. Little did poor Ralph know that Rachel Lee had planned this chance meeting. This beautiful blonde who was melting Ralph's heart was, of course, actually Rachel Lee's daughter. And her real name is Portia Lee. She, of course, was not a financial expert. She didn't have any psychic abilities. Rachel just gave her all the details about Rain so that she could fake her free fortune reading. But at this point, of course, it was too late for Ralph. He's already on the hook now. So soon after the airport meeting, Ralph employed Mary Marks as Rachel's assistant bookkeeper.
Why would she be her assistant bookkeeper if she's a financial expert? Sorry. What the hell?
I know. It's like, how much...
Ralph.
I don't know what she could have possibly been doing there. I don't know. Maybe she counted all the trees for him. I don't know.
Oh, man.
So, like, on his side, like, he's like, oh, man, all this stuff is working out for me after being so lonely. He's like, I finally have an expert helping me manage the family business. He had an assistant that he liked and a handyman to keep things in order so he didn't have to call, like, repair people all the time. I mean, it seemed like, for him, it's like, oh, this is great. Then, for Rachel, of course, it was also aligned perfectly so she could accomplish her con job goal of swindling him out of all of his fortune. So, the next thing that we know is that Ralph had made Mary his first Mrs. Raines. So, this was in like 6 months of meeting. Yeah, then she convinced him to have a baby with her through artificial insemination. Oddly, Raines and Mary never had intimate contact, according to the investigators in the case. So 9 months later, Mary, quote-unquote, gave birth to a baby. And get this is a good too. The baby's name was Giorgio Armani.
Really? Oh, man.
Yeah. That's like that designer guy, right? Like the suit guy of New York.
Totally the suit
or whatever.
guy. I wouldn't know. I'm wearing like a shirt from Target right now or Walmart or something. I don't wear that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been into an Armani store or any of those. Like,
I totally have. I have one time in Vegas. Yes.
Oh.
I remember going,
Vegas.
we got to go in there. And we went in there and I looked at one shirt. It was hideous, by the way. And it was like all patterns and 70s looking. It was $1,700. I was like, whoa, ew. I don't.
And, so they let you guys in? Did you have to, make an appointment? Like, isn't it one of those stores?
No,
I don't know.
Open. It was a little boutique store. I'm trying to think where it was in Vegas now. I can't remember. Maybe Caesar's Palace or something. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, Miss Fancy Pants Starfish goes to... she goes to Armani.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ralph at this point of the story, he's like on top of the world, right? Because he's got a wife, beautiful young wife, beautiful son. And Giorgio was like the son that Ralph thought he'd never have. Like he raised the boy with all of his love. And by 2011, poor Ralph believed that he and Mary Marks had married and had a child. So
was the child not his then?
Well, here's the heartbreaking part of this whole story.
Yeah, the artificial insemination part's a little sketch.
Right, yeah. So basically everything Ralph believed wasn't true, including Giorgio.
Oh.
I know. Ralph and Portia, who was posing as Mary, didn't live together. She said she had a full-time finance job in California. So the time apart helped her to convince Ralph that she was pregnant. She wasn't pregnant with Ralph's child. Portia had worn a foam baby bump to fake a pregnancy and conveniently left town. Yeah. And so Rachel Lee had another daughter, actually, who had a small boy child. So she basically used her own grandson to pose as the child Portia named Giorgio Armani.
Ew.
Could you imagine that little kid, too, like, growing up, like, with this fake name and stuff? That's so weird,
and,
right?
This guy,
like, I'm surprised.
You're supposed to be his dad or something? Like... You're not my dad. I know
I don't know
dad.
how they pulled that off. Yeah, like, I'm surprised, because, like, little kids tell the truth all the time. I'm surprised that, like, he didn't slip up at least once during this whole thing.
Maybe a couple of years, but a few years tops. But the kid eventually would be like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Maybe they called him Papa or something.
Really bizarre.
Oh, it could be Grandpa. I don't know.
Like, exactly. Anyway, so here's the money part now. So according to the court documents, Lee assumed the role as a paid caregiver to Ralph's elderly father by 2007. And so I want to talk a little bit about that because what they did was they convinced Ralph to purchase a couple of properties or 2 or 3 houses to run their businesses out of, like their psychic business. And so one of the houses they moved Ralph Sr. into, well, the family was like, living in the house with all the nice stuff and the nice bedrooms. Ralph Sr. was actually left to sleep out in the hallway.
With the old man?
So
oh my gosh,
yeah.
How horrible.
Yeah, I just have to emphasize that because I had to dig that one up in this because this is like how terrible these people are.
Gosh, that's disgusting.
Like, there's no limit to how horrible these people are. Like, that's just so gross. So
gross. And steal all your money and cart your poor dad out in the hallway. What's he going to do?
Yes, exactly. Right. So in March of 2008, Ralph turned over control of all of his financial accounts to Rachel Lee. So there you go. And had papers drawn up to give her power of attorney.
Why?
I know. Like, she must have convinced him of
you
all
don't
sorts of stuff.
need someone to
totally
be your
crazy.
power of attorney unless you think you're going to die.
Right.
I mean, I guess you could die at any time, and at that point, you could put it in your will who's going to be your power of attorney, but they don't need power of attorney, probably. I wouldn't put anybody as my power of attorney. Not right now.
So Rachel used her psychic abilities to get Ralph to sign control of his entire estate over to her. So...
Oh, man, that's terrible.
It is so bad. And so then a February 15th release by the U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Oregon, read, between 2007 and 2011, Rachel Lee directed the victim to incrementally liquidate investment accounts totaling approximately $3.8 million. And then after depleting the victim's investment accounts, Rachel Lee convinced the victim he owed substantial taxes and needed to sell his family's tree farm. So,
jeez,
at Lee's direction.
So horrible.
Yes. Oh my God, yeah. So at Lee's direction, the tree farm properties were sold for approximately $12.3 million.
Oh, how sad. Gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, God, what happened to this woman? She better have gotten it.
I know. Yeah, so we're going to get to that. So basically, they spent Ralph's fortune on a luxury lifestyle, of course. So Lee directed funds for high roller trips to Las Vegas, trips to California, a first-class trip to Europe. She also spent her money from him on luxury clothing and jewelry, including a $64,000 Rolex watch, while selling off the victim's property. So Rachel Lee and Lancy Lee purchased a Ferrari and a Bentley on a single day. And then between 2010 and 2013, Lee and her co-defendants used the victim's money to purchase at least 10 properties, so that even more, at a cost of approximately $3.3 million.
Well, at least they're stupid. Nobody makes that much as a psychic or a bookkeeper, Jesus.
Oh, I know. So, and 10 properties, I mean, that's
so
a lot. Like, holy crap. Yeah, I knew about the 3, but 10, geez. So she and her family used 3 of the properties, there you go, in Bend and Canby and Scarpos as psychic shops. So...
swindle more people.
Yeah. So I'm going to say, I have to commend the detectives in this case and also the neighbor in this case that kind of tipped off and, pieced together the story to authorities on this. And I think his neighbor actually had some sort of law enforcement background, but they also worked on his farm as a logger at one point. So they knew the property well. And so for it to all of a sudden go up for sale is pretty suspicious, to the people around him. Yeah. It's a small town, so he probably knows some local people and they're like, oh yeah, he's the nice guy that owns the tree farm down the road, Right. So I have to commend the neighbor and Detective Stephen Floyd of the nearby Canby Police Department for doing his job. Here's how they caught these jackasses. Stephen Floyd was doing a routine patrol when he noticed this unusual display of prosperity at Rachel's little psychic shop. He noticed that there were high-end cars were coming and going. Yeah, right?
Stupid.
So, right, exactly. So also, there was something fishy about the sale of the tree farm. So that Ralph had inherited. So the curious detective decided to dig deeper. So thank God for people like him out there protecting the vulnerable of our society here. So he learned that Ralph had fallen prey to this notorious band of psychics, and they went to some extremes to get his money. Obviously they've acted all this stuff out. So Rachel Lee masterminded the fraud by acting as his bookkeeper and his psychic advisor. Blancy, who Ralph believed was her brother, was actually a con man and called himself, actually, and I quote, the king of gypsies, or the Italian gypsy.
Okay. You weren't the one who swindled all this money. It was Rachel, really.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So, and Mary Marks for nearly 10 years. And Ralph didn't even know that the wedding was a fake, right?
Oh, thank goodness.
And obviously the wedding was
goodness.
totally fake. Like, it was never legalized, so, because it was, it wasn't her name, so she couldn't,
True.
pull that off. I mean, they probably put together like a fake wedding certificate.
Yeah, right.
So the investigators didn't find any records of the wedding being made official. There was no marriage certificate, although Ralph, he believed it was a legitimate marriage, of course.
But still, I guess it's good it wasn't, because being married just flips a switch and everything is equal at that point.
Right. So here's the part where they get in trouble. Usually this is the part where I love. Let's see what they got. Again, sometimes it's not what we think it should be. Our justice system needs some work here. Especially for these type of crimes.
Yeah, let me guess. She's missing and like hanging out with
right,
Russia Ignatova or something over there. United Emirates.
Yeah, like she just fled the country, right? Oh my gosh. So finally, the investigation goes through and then they decide to go in and get these people, which thank God for that. So on February 19th of 2015, U.S. District Judge Robert E. Jones sentenced Rachel Lee, then 44, to 100 months in prison for her lead role in a conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and her failure to file personal income taxes. So Judge Jones also ordered Lee to pay $15,490,978.65 in restitution
that's good.
to the victim.
Probably file bankruptcy, but still. 8 years and have to pay restitution.
Well, and I'm hoping that they seized as much as they could. Obviously you can't get all those expensive trips back, but hopefully they seized all the properties and cars and Rolex watches and all that stuff. It's kind of like, Schitt's Creek, if you guys have ever seen that. Hopefully they went in and did that, where they stole all, went in and took everything, basically. The government shows up and the show's over, folks,
Right.
That's so, I know. So, in addition to the prison sentence, she must serve 3 years of post-prison supervised release. Basically, by the time all this happened, Ralph had $250,000.
Oh my gosh!
And that was it. Oh yeah, they just totally soaked the guy for everything he had.
I wonder if
everything
had started to fall apart too at that point with his marriage and stuff, because there's only $250,000.
Yeah, so basically it just left him nearly penniless. It's just such a tragic, horrible story. It looks like Rachel's daughter Portia was jailed for 33 months, while Blancy Lee was jailed for 18 months. So that's kind of crappy 18 months for what they did to this poor man for 10 years. And his father.
The justice system definitely basically says don't let yourself be scammed. It doesn't say don't scam people. It says don't let yourself be scammed. We're only going to give them 18 months. They're going to get out, I bet, earlier than that. It's sad that you have to just watch out for yourself. You can't rely, even when they catch them in these cases. Still, 8 years?
It's like a sentence for stealing gum out of Walmart. Mm-hmm. What kind of crap is that? So, I'm sorry, but I hate the justice system. It's just
it is. They overdo it with certain people, and they way underdo it with people like this. We don't want these people in society, not the person up the street who is selling pot out of his basement. Give me a break. Calm down, justice system. It's all backwards. So,
oh, it totally is. It's such a joke. I'm just are you kidding me right now with this? So it's just disgusting. So poor Ralph, he finds all this out because everyone is going to jail now. In some of the interviews, if you look him up on YouTube, this poor guy still to this day, of course he was totally heartbroken when he found it all out.
His first and only love.
Yeah. He said he was crushed. His life is shattered. He's living out without the woman and child that he thought was his family. I couldn't imagine
that. That'd be so bad.
Oh, no. And amazingly, he's ready to forgive and forget all this. He said if they would just be honest with him and be willing to rectify the situation, which obviously they can't. It looks like he somehow was able to regain ownership of the tree farm.
Oh, that's good.
So he said that his trees are the only family he has left now.
Wait, go back.
Sad.
Did you say that he said he would forgive them?
Oh, yeah.
Bigger man than I am.
Oh, yeah. Forgive and forget. I mean, I would say this man is probably, like, if you met him at a coffee shop, he would probably sit down and have a conversation with you. Like, he seems like a very nice person. So, again, these are the type of people that I will defend, even though he is a millionaire, because he has a sustainable business that he's trying to run. And it seems like a very ethical way. And then you have these assholes that just have to come in and ruin everything.
Right.
So I think when they sold the farm the first time before he got it back, when they sold it, I think they wiped out all the trees on the property. So he's had to like regrow everything. Whoever bought it just like wiped everything out because
what the hell?
Tree stuff.
Why?
So. Yeah. So this poor guy, like, I mean, it's just like then he has to go back and rebuild this whole empire. I mean, I don't know how much he got back. You know, it's like just from my own personal experience with fraud, like I only received like a small portion back.
Yeah, right.
Even though I did get everything back. But the settlement stuff, it usually takes forever. And you usually only get like a small portion recovered. So they did actually assign, it's like the court put this guy named Kit Jensen in place as Raines' conservator to make sure that he holds on to whatever cash it gets recovered. So at least the court was smart enough to say, okay, this guy, he's not like super business savvy maybe, and we should just appoint someone to help him out a little bit, you know?
Although we know the story with Brittany and her conservator, but it was her dad. But still, wow, I'm glad they did that because this poor guy, gosh, do not hand your $12 million business or any business over to your psychic, for God's sakes, ever. Oh man,
yeah. My God, yeah.
And the scam with the daughter and everything, that is, if you think about it, unfortunately, it's kind of brilliant because, of course, she was going to be able to say every single thing that happened because she was making it happen. Just trusting that psychic way too much. And then when things happen, it's like, see, I was confirmed. It's right. I got to listen to every word she says now. Ugh.
Right.
Terrible.
I think this is worse than the other psychic fraud.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that was only like 100,000, 150,000 maybe tops, but this is 15 million. Plus the family thing with the son. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Oh, gross.
I mean, it doesn't sound like they were super close because he was in California. I don't know if they live there with him. I don't know. It just sounds terrible.
I know. It's so bad. I just kind of want to give Ralph Jr. a hug, you know? Take him out for some coffee.
Go get a Blockbuster video.
Sympathetic ear. Yeah. Just,
Ralph.
You know, hang out. Yeah, poor Ralph. Ralph, we do love you. I'm sorry that this super shittiness happened.
Yeah,
that
really
sucks. So,
well, that was a crazy story, Mary Contrary.
Thanks for 100%. Yep.
Watch out for psychics, people.
Yeah, be careful. Careful when you get your cards read. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Real Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. We look forward to having you on our next one.